Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for June 12th. So me oh my, there's a lot going on. The Dow has dropped significantly, so so much for Trump's the economy is rebounding and everything is wonderful and great. So, that's not going to work out so well, I don't think. The economy is not rebounding. You have like 44 million people getting unemployment now. This is not going to snap back, and he can spin it however he wants, but he's not going to be able to, just sort of make what's there. But he's not going to be able to so color reality that someone's actually going to buy into his message. Of course, except for the diehards. Speaking of which. So this was interesting. I saw on television, I think it was this morning, maybe, or yesterday, an interview with Steve Schmidt. So some of you will know who that is. He's part of the Lincoln. He's a Republican. He's part of the Lincoln Project. He is very well spoken, very eloquent. So he was being interviewed yesterday, and they were talking about. Sort of the polls and how Trump is doing and that base of his, and is the base moving or not moving? And he said something, I don't know, I found it humorous. Maybe I found it humorous because I'm not American, I'm not sure. But what he said was, okay, so this is the thing, right? He says Trump has, I don't know, 35 to even, let's give him 40%. That's where he's polling right now. And he said, and I quote this very closely, I think, he said, you got to remember, though, that 25 to 30% of Americans are just like crazy. They don't agree with anybody. Which leaves, do the math, right? That leaves Trump with a very small, I guess, percentage of people who he may yet lose, because there's only going to be so many that stick to him through thick and thin, even as they are watching their own personal worlds disintegrate in front of them. So that was interesting. I also saw some polling information this morning, and it was done by Ramsden. I don't know who they are. I'm not quite sure I got that name right. Whoever they are kind of leaning liberal, okay? So their polls tend to really strongly reflect, liberal ideas, and, liberals get good results, I guess, from these polls is the way I want to say it. According to what I heard, Trump is now 11 points behind Biden in that poll. So he's not even doing well with Republicans. Now, you also had Republicans pushing back against him when he made the statement that none of the bases that are named after Confederate generals or whatever they were are not, those base names are not going to change. And he's actually getting pushback from generals, and he's getting pushback just from Republicans on that. And of course, yesterday, because I'm recording this on Thursday, so there was that General Milley, and I'm not sure if I have his actual rank correct. He went on television and apologized for taking part in that stroll through Lafayette Park for that photo opportunity. So Trump is experiencing, exactly as predicted, a kind of a loosening, right? I mean, people are just falling away from him. And the more he becomes entrenched in his ideas, the more he believes that, he's the only one in the room who knows anything, the worse it's going to get for him. Apparently, he is also spending a lot of time yelling at Brad Pascal and Jared Kushner because he does not like the polling results. He doesn't like the information he's getting with regards to his upcoming election. So, in view of all of that, I want to take a look today at the trajectory of the Black Lives Matter movement and Trump. So there's been a lot of pushback about the Confederate flags and Confederate statues and names. And I want to see if this time it might actually stick. So let's take a look. So come on down, because I have a question. Alrighty. Black Lives Matter, Trump trajectory. Black Lives Matter, Trump trajectory. Black Lives Matter, Trump trajectory. So let's see what we see about this, shall we? Okay, so we're starting here, I don't know if you can see that, with the Nine of Swords. And the Nine of Swords is talking to us about anxiety and worry and stress and agitation. This is Trump's. Okay, this is Trump. This is what is going on with him right now. He can't seem to get his footing. He can't say the right thing. Everything that comes out of his mouth or gets sent out on a tweet is absolutely tone deaf. And he has that Kaylee, the press secretary, mimicking his nonsense. Today it was, or yesterday, I guess, when you're seeing this, was about, you can't get rid of the statues and the flag because, if you don't understand your history, you're destined to repeat the past. That's sort of the line they're using. Well, except for your entire history of the country is about this situation primarily. So removing some offensive statues and flags, I think, are not going to change the history. And I don't think anybody's likely to forget it anytime soon, no matter what your race. So there's a lot of stress and worry and anxiety going on because he can't seem to find the right tone, the right words, the right message. And he realizes that kind of everything he wants, right? The election, the win, that what he wants is really, really hinging on his ability to get that message sorted out and out in front of, those people who are going to come to his rallies and, support him. But again, those numbers are shrinking, and this is the thing to remember. Just because a poll says, oh, Trump has 75% of the base, or Trump has 80% of his base, he's in good solid shape. Well, he's not if his base only represents 30 or 35% of the American people. That it doesn't matter, like 1 out of 2 is 50%. But if you have 2 and somebody else has 10, they're not going to do so well. And I guess slowly but surely, maybe that reality is just starting to register. Now, as far as Black Lives Matter, this is an interesting card because it's talking about the past. But it's talking about it in a way that it has a flavor of reviewing the past, looking at the past, not through rose-colored glasses, but with a fair degree of clarity. And you can see that a lot of that energy is actually going on around the country because you have people from all generations and all races finally coming together and saying, you know what, this is just crap, the way these people are being treated, and it really, really needs to stop. And this is not who we are as a country. This is not how we want to be represented as a country, and it needs to stop. So that which has sort of been stolen, and that's actually, not even a right word. It's almost like that which was never given. such as respect and recognition that all men are equal, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The movement towards correction is going to continue to pick up momentum. So in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, the continual exposure or illumination of that which was not sort of well known or well publicized or kept at a local level in terms of inappropriate behavior by police stations, that those tapes, those stories are going to continue to come out. And the more they come out, the more people are going to sort of say, you know what? The clouds have cleared now, okay? We're getting, those of us who weren't Black, and so we kind of only paid sort of attention to this because it didn't affect us. The clouds have sort of drifted away, and we're seeing with real clarity exactly what the heck is going on, how we as a country are being represented when it comes to dealing with certain segments or populations, segments of the population, I mean. So with that clarity, with the clouds lifting, with the old information coming out, you are going to see justice finally arriving. Now, I do caution you. Justice is not going to come by some form of magic in the next couple of months, okay? It is going to start a process. So just like, for example, these army bases that are named after Confederate generals, soldiers, whatever they were, maybe they're not going to get changed under Trump, even though he's getting pushed back. Maybe they're not going to actually be able to convince him that he has to do this. And I don't know if that's something that, like, I don't know how that would work in terms of, you know, does it literally pass through like the House of Representatives? Is it like a law that gets created? And, you know, so does it go from sort of Nancy Pelosi to Moscow Mitch? And like, I'm not sure of that process. However, and I don't know if it would sort of be a veto-proof vote if that's actually what happens. However, my point is not that. My point is, this has now come to the surface. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and you can't not remember the brutality and the cruelty of some of the videos that have been on your television screens lately. So if it's not done, that's okay, because it will be done January, February, March 2021. That's what you need to sort of keep in perspective. Don't lose hope, don't lose your momentum, but understand that a lot of this stuff that is coming to light, it needs someone other than Trump to be in office to get this stuff happening and done. And so the trajectory is really promising for Black Lives Matter, for justice, for, you know, equal or fair treatment by the police. There's going to be changes and adjustments also coming to your court systems, to the incarceration kind of models or systems, excuse me, that put, you know, somebody who is in possession of, you know, 2 ounces of marijuana, which of course is legal here in Canada, and they throw them in jail for 10 years, and then you have some white guy who did 100 times worse, and they're in jail for, you know, a year and a half. There's going to be reform coming to that aspect also. But again, the awareness is strong. It is powerful. It has hit critical mass. I keep using that term when talking about the Black Lives Matter protests. And I kind of almost want to use the word phenomenon, because it has really gained so much momentum and so much speed and so much exposure in a really, really short period of time, if you think about how long the struggle has been going on. So there's going to be change that comes, and it's going to be generational. There's some of it is going to be actually really, really significant. But understand, if it doesn't happen between sort of November, it's going to be dealt with, rectified, and there's going to be forward movement on that in January, February, March, and forward. So don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. This situation for the Black Lives Matter movement, for brown and black people, for all of those who are made to feel that they don't belong or are less than because they don't have white skin, they are going to find their place being elevated and sort of stabilized, okay? But it's going to take time. It can't be done in a rush, because when you, especially it seems with politics, first of all, things drag too slowly when it comes to politicians. However, the other side of that is it seems that when they move too fast, they really screw things up, like badly. I'm thinking about, the 1% of the 1% who got all of those tax breaks, right? When you push through too fast, it doesn't work well. So the trajectory is really, really kind of wonderful to see. And you've got the Hangman here, and that's talking about a couple of things. The first thing it's talking about is the sacrifices that were made over the last 400 years are going to be acknowledged, corrected. There is a change of fortune, a good, positive change of fortune coming to this movement. You can't unsee, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. This is not going to get, sort of brushed under the carpets. And politicians who are not Trump are starting to recognize that, and they're starting to shift away from him because he's really doubling down and digging in. And seasoned politicians understand that this is not a good thing. Okay, it is not in anyone's political interest to side with Trump on this issue. And frankly, I want to say that the people in government around him are getting a little tired of the influence of Stephen Miller. They're tired of him, sort of this constant chattering in Trump's ears about, the superiority of the white race. And trust me, he's spending a lot of time chatting in Trump's ear these days. But the people around him are starting to get really, they're sick and tired of it. That's the bottom line. Okay, the people in his campaign are sick and tired of his theatrics and his ridiculous behavior. Republicans in the House and in the Senate are very clearly getting to a point where they just cannot defend anything else the man says. And they, behind the scenes, and frankly, sometimes in public now, are making their views and opinions and feelings known. So he is going to continue to come up against resistance to his overtly racist ideas, plans, speech, whatever. I would not be surprised, this is just a random thought, it just flew into my head, so I'm going to share it. I would not be surprised if, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but within 2, 3, 5 years, the Confederate flag is going to, if not be outright banned in your country, it is going to be a symbol that is so distasteful to so many people that by simply, using that symbol, you actually are going to be publicly, sort of, you're ostracizing yourself from the mainstream. So, I know that Germany has literally a law forbidding the swastika to be used in Germany in any way, shape, or form. I actually got to say, I'm thinking I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the road that same thing happens to that Confederate flag. And as I said, I've said before, this is not just about your country. What is happening in your country is causing countries everywhere to take a good look at their own systemic racism, their own police forces, their own community interactions. And so this continues to build momentum. This is a global shift, and it is a global shift because of the changing and shifting vibrational level of the planet. Things that used to be institutions, things that used to be the norm, they are now coming down, and a better way is going to be created going forward. The lessons of this president need to be learned and retained so that this sort of a pattern does not repeat itself. And there's going to be some real energy put behind pushing forward for legal change that is on the books, in terms of things that he got away with that he should never been allowed to get away with, except for the fact that he had a completely complicit Republican politicians around him. So there's that. Now, as for Trump, he's feeling kind of picked on. He's feeling, like people don't love him, and that makes him sad. And he doesn't really understand what the fuss is about this whole Black Lives Matter thing, and so he's not getting the message there. And he's going to continue charging ahead. He has, there's a planned rally in, I believe it is Tulsa, Oklahoma, on June 19th. I actually had to look up June 19th and find out sort of why there was so much pushback against that. And so this is a really, really important date, as I understand it, for the Black community. And I'm not going to say any more about that because I'm woefully uneducated and I don't want to say something wrong or put a spin on it that's not accurate. But the fact that he is sort of planning a rally and he's so overtly racist, it doesn't sit well. It'll be interesting to see if that changes, if they shift the date at all. But for sure, he is going to continue moving forward to try to succeed in his goal. His agenda is everything, okay? And that is his only focus. He doesn't care if cities burn to the ground. He doesn't care if people are murdered in the streets. He doesn't care if businesses are destroyed. He doesn't care. He just wants to be reelected. He really doesn't want to lose to Joe Biden. He really doesn't want to be a one-term president. The problem, however, is he's burned up whatever sort of capital he might have had with other Republicans, with more mainstream Republicans, if you will. And so now he really is left with I'm trying to think of a better way to say the phrase that just came into my mind, which is sort of the bottom of the barrel in terms of the population. And I don't like how that feels because, people have their reasons for believing what they believe. And I don't really like the idea of characterizing them as less than, because frankly, that's a behavior that really does need to be corrected across the board, whether you are Black, brown, Republican. Okay, this whole notion of you don't agree with me and so you're less than me, it needs to stop. Now, speaking of which, I received a really interesting message the other day. I was reading some comments, and they were talking about, families that are ripped together, brothers and sisters who are fighting, friends who are no longer speaking because of politics. And a lot of my viewers are writing and saying, I don't understand, and I can't get through to them. And why will they not let go of these really, frankly, backwards and horrendous beliefs that they are sticking to? And I got the most interesting message from Spirit, and this is what it was. For those of you who feel that you are surrounded by Trump fans and you're kind of at a loss as to what you're doing with that social group in that family, whatever the dynamic is. When light workers were coming down to the earth because they knew about the energy shifts that were going to be taking place starting in like about 2000 and literally moving forward for the next 100 years in terms of just shifts and how things are going to get corrected and replaced and whatever. A lot of light workers, that would be you guys, chose to come into environments or family groupings where they were not going to agree. They were going to be simply more light-filled, more inclusive, more open-minded. The reason they chose to be born into those groups is to afford the other people an opportunity to receive a more enlightened and inclusive view. Now, that doesn't mean it's your job to fix it or convince them or change their minds, because everything is about free will. But you chose to go into that sort of an environment so that should there be people who were ready to hear a more enlightened and inclusive view, there would be somebody within their circle who would have that information or be able to talk about that or share their thoughts and ideas about it. If the people around you have not sort of seen the light, if you will, it's not on you. It's not on you. You chose to do this for them as a favor. And frankly, and at great cost, because as a lot of you know, you are the ones suffering the hardships as the people around you are basically saying that, you're wrong and, you're not thinking straight, when in fact, you're thinking very clearly. So, not only did you do this as a favor or as an intention to afford them that opportunity, but frankly, you did it in a way that was going to expose you to a fair bit of their negativity. So, just for those of you who sort of have been dealing with that, that sort of the more spiritual aspect, the more spiritual reason for why so many of you find yourselves in these groups of people who just will not budge from the Trump mantra, will not budge from the way he sees the world. So, going forward, you're going to have, so there's going to be a lot of energy put into changing thinking, creating new conversations, new ways of looking at things, new possibilities, reimagining how things could work and work more effectively in a different sort of format or in a different way. What has been in the dark, what has been that dirty little secret, is now being exposed. Whether that is all of the police reports that were flat lies when they were talking about an incident with a Black person, whether you are talking about blatant dereliction of their duties and vows when they're murdering people on the street corner. All of that stuff is bubbling up now. And I kid you not, over the next days and weeks and months, you are going to continue to see more and more and more of these videos. Now, the news cycle is finally starting to rebalance a little bit, so they're not only focused on one thing or the other, but hold on. Sorry about that. I had to stop recording because Mr. Jerry here decided he was going to try to claw his way up the screen door. Would you like to apologize, or are you sticking to your story that everybody just needed a happy moment before the weekend? I'm not sure what story you're sticking to, but whatever it is, stay off of my screen. Go. Be a good boy. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so the dirty little secrets have been exposed. There is going to be continual movement forward to bring companies, institutions, and governments into alignment. So more and more companies like NASCAR are going to be saying, yeah, you know what, this is no longer acceptable. This is no longer reflective of the image or the message that we want to send as a company. And you're going to see more and more of that because, again, critical mass has been achieved. And frankly, this has been a really brilliant example of what happens when you hit critical mass. And if you want a tsunami to take out the Republican Party in the next election, that's exactly the kind of energy that we are moving towards. We are moving towards creating critical mass to bring Biden into office, to bring more Democrats into office. We are not using the words get rid of or any of that. It's not about getting rid of, it's about positively bringing in. And that's the kind of energy and momentum that is now going to, it has been building for 3.5 years, let's face it, but it's really going to start ramping up as we move forward. And Trump continues to be, frankly, such a bonehead. Okay. So it's stressful. It's a little hard to take sometimes, but honestly, in your own way, shape, and form, embrace the critical mass because that really is the energy that brings about significant reform and change. So I guess Jerry and I wish you a lovely weekend. Hopefully you'll have some good weather wherever you are and you can enjoy it, get some rest, tune out a little bit, focus on other things because the summer is going to be bumpy. It's not just June that's going to be bad. It's July and it's August. So start pacing yourself, start getting some rest, start, balancing out your world. Most of all, though, just stay true to yourself, take care of yourself. And together, globally, we're going to get through this. Until next time, take care and be well. Bye-bye.